Okay, well, good evening, everybody. This is unusual Monday night for me and for the team I usually work with on a Fordyce Fusion evening when we have a webinar. Now we're trying to be a little bolder and we're having what's it called, a podcast webinar or whatever. I never know the right terminology. And so you're not going to hear from, though they will ask questions, you're not going to hear from the usual team of Tony Silver and Ian Mooreshead, and alas, not the very lovely Karen and the lovely Shanae. But there's a silver lining to every cloud. And the silver lining is that tonight's guest is an even lovelier lady called Carla Molinaro. Carla, welcome to the show. I hope that you are an omen for great things in the future.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. So, Carla, I know you're in Cape Town and I'm in Johannesburg. I can tell because there's still a hint of light behind you for Cape
Yeah.
Town's sunset, and we are in Stygian darkness. It's pitch black here. But Carla, can I just start off by asking you just a little bit about yourself? For instance, you're very English. That'll become very apparent to anyone listening to this, your English accent. But the surname Molinaro, I mean, that sounds very Italian.
Yeah. So I'm kind of a bit from everywhere. I was actually born in Johannesburg, and
Oh,
lived
wow.
there
Okay.
until, yeah, I was 9. And then my parents moved to the UK, and my dad's dad is Italian. So that's where the Italian name comes from.
Okay.
And yeah, so my immediate family still live in the UK, but all my aunties and uncles are spread over South Africa, in Joburg and Ballito.
Okay. And then Carla, you returned to South Africa. What was the reason for that?
So I actually have been back a couple of times. I lived here
Okay.
2018 to 2020 up in Joburg, but then when COVID happened, I decided to go back to my family in the UK. And then I always wanted to live in Cape Town. So in 2022, once everything became a little bit easier, I felt like it was the right time to come to Cape Town, and pretty much week of being here, I never want to leave. So I'm in now.
Okay. Okay. So the obvious question, asking a long distance runner, okay, from one long distance runner to another, is as beautiful as Cape Town is and as amazing as some of those runs are. And of course, I've done them all. It has one glaring defect, and that it does not have high altitude. Um, and that is the single reason why I stayed all my running career up in Johannesburg at high altitude, because, as you know, at high altitude you produce more red blood cells, and so you have a higher oxygen carrying capacity. So you're at a distinct disadvantage if you're training and living at low altitude as opposed to your opponent who might be living anywhere at high altitude. Is that for you? Does that matter, or you don't really care, or do you sometimes come up to altitude?
So it's a couple of reasons for me. So personally, like I'm actually not that fast in terms of like my marathon
Okay.
speed. And when you come up to altitude, you are running a little bit slower. So I think one for me, I actually benefit from staying a little bit lower where I can run a little bit quicker. Like endurance isn't my problem, but the speed is, and that's something
Okay.
that I need to work on. And then as
Yeah.
well,
Well,
I just
yeah.
think, yeah, like lifestyle, I think that yes, altitude could be of benefit, but actually the environment that you're in is really important. And I've just got a really nice group of friends and an amazing training group down here that I think also, where some I don't have the altitude, having that training group for me is a massive advantage. Um, yeah, and one that I think
Yeah.
really
Okay.
helpful.
I mean, that's a great answer, and something I'm going to talk about later. We know that you're not short of we know you're not short of endurance because of one of the two of the things that you've achieved. Carla, just for me, so I can show off uh, my family roots. You're going to know what this is.
I am.
You know what
It's a
that is.
kukri.
Yeah, it's a cookery, and it is this is actually a woodsman one. It's, as you know, this is not an army one, but this very famous knife belongs to a very famous regiment of soldiers called the Gurkhas. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were a Gurkha.
I was. So yeah, the Gurkhas are part of the British Army. The soldiers are from Nepal, and they're notorious for how strong, brave, courageous, fit that. And yeah, I was lucky enough to serve in the Queen's Royal Gurkha Logistic Regiment for 2 years when I was in the army. So yeah,
Wow.
I have a couple of kukris as well.
Well, yeah. So that we have that in common because my father rose to the rank of major in those days, the second King Edward's Gurkhas, and so I grew up in the Far East. And when I was born, I might have to snap to attention. Sorry, what was your rank when you were in the
I was a
Gurkhas,
captain.
Carla?
A captain.
Oh dear. Okay, sorry. So when I was born, my father's soldiers, just to tease him and to pay tribute to him as a senior officer, when I was born, I was immediately enlisted into the Second Gurkhas as a rifleman, and
Nice.
because they couldn't pronounce Bruce, I was immediately called a rifleman number 420 Burus Bahadapun. That's my first, and that's the final thing. But just so people understand the mindset of a Gurkha, the mindset of the person I'm talking to, is that one of their vows is better to die than to live a coward. So yeah, so that's the person you're dealing with. Um, so Carla, yeah, your CV screams, just absolutely screams achievement. And so what I thought I'd do is just go through your highlights and maybe we can talk about it. And please forgive me if I leave out something that is really spectacular. But I thought, because people won't know that about you. I mean, you have Comrades achievements, Two Oceans achievements. You are the world 50-kilometer champion. But I think an extraordinary thing that people don't know about you, people don't know here, that you are Le Jog record holder. And please tell us something about it. But very quickly, Le Jog, for those of you who don't know, is running the entire length of Britain from Land's End, that's the Land's End, to John O'Groats in the north of Scotland. And you did that, Carla, and please tell us a little bit about it. Not only did you break the record, and correct me again if I'm wrong, you still hold the record, but you did it in the most appalling conditions, howling headwinds and lashing rain. But please tell us about that.
Yeah, so in 2020, my lockdown project, after all the races got cancelled, I thought it would be a really good idea to try and go for the jog record. And yeah, so pretty much as soon as everything went into lockdown, I picked a date, which was going to be 12 weeks later. That's how much notice you had to give Guinness World Records. And I worked out what the current record was. I divided it down and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this in 12 days, try and beat the record, 110 kilometers a day. And I was going to attempt to run the length of the country. Luckily,
Oh.
having been in the army, I think that helped massively with me putting a bit of a shout out to all of my friends, being like, who can help me with the logistics and organizing of it? Because you need a super, almost regimented team to help you do it. And yeah, we were really lucky that 12 weeks later, some of the restrictions were lifted. We drove down to Cornwall and then started to run a very long way every day. And still to this day, I'm like, I'm not quite sure how we ran 110K a day for 12 days, but we did.
18.
And Carla, I love tribute to the team when you say we ran 110K a day. No, you did. They might have supported you, but you did.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned again, luckily your army background, but again, I'm going to refer to luckily you're a Gurkha. and better to die than to live a hero. So I had no doubt that you would have run until you died rather than fell. But tell us about the conditions. It was appalling.
So we kind of had a bit of everything, which I guess in a 12-day snapshot of the UK is what you actually get. So some days were boiling hot, some days were freezing cold. I got like sunburn, windburn. The worst weather was actually in the last 24 hours where we had a northerly storm come in. And yeah, that's when I was running into the wind for the last day, which was a little bit emotional, but yeah, I guess it's part of the prize you get of running in an island. You get everything. The sunny days were glorious, the windy days were awful. So we got a bit of both.
Okay. And hopefully there was a huge reception committee at John O'Groats to welcome you in, or was it just, you know, one Scotsman in a kilt and a howling wind?
Pretty much. It was the team that ran with me. My parents actually ended up, I was running up the road and I think I was about 30 kilometers from the end. And I'm like, is that my dad's car or am I hallucinating at this point? I was like, why are they here? Turned out it was my dad's car. And because they had come to see me earlier in the week, and Shane, they had driven all the way back up to see me again. So it was really nice to have family there with me and the crew. But yeah, it was actually quite small, mainly because people weren't really allowed to venture out much at that point.
Of course,
But
yeah.
it was the right group for the moment. Yeah.
And then, I mean, yeah, let's not going to dwell on it for too long, but are you tempted to do, what's it called the other way around? The joggle, or what's it? If you do
Yeah,
John
joggle.
O'Groats to Land's End, it's a joggle. You're not tempted to go
Yeah.
and do it? No.
No. I definitely want to do more long distance runs like that, but I think you've only got a few of those in your body. So
Yeah.
I really want to do the length of South Africa and Italy. So there's other ones out there that I would do before doing that one again. And it's not very pretty. So you run on like dual carriageways.
Yes, yeah. You don't go through the most beautiful part. But anyway, an astonishing achievement. And I just may have said it and I wasn't listening. How much did you take off the record?
I think it was about between 10 to 12 hours. I can't remember exactly, but in that ballpark.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, and then okay, let's leave that and say let's focus on, and then you came to South Africa, and of course the two major races that we have here, the Two Oceans and the Comrades. I think you've got a third place in the Two Oceans, a third place in Comrades. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And tell us about those. I mean, which of those two is your passion, or are you passionate about both of them?
I'm passionate in them ways. Two Oceans, I just love the day. It is so much fun. And I think because I live in Cape Town and my friend out on the route, it's really special to share the road with people that I see running up and down the prom every day, the people that I train with and my friends that come out to support. So it kind of has a different feel about it. But Comrades, there's just something about that race that just pulls me back. And I think because it's so hard, it's so tough, it's so gritty, and I don't feel like I've nailed that race yet, that I keep wanting to go back to try and get better at it. So yeah, both of them have kind of a different pull for me.
I know the feeling. Don't worry, I know the feeling. So, sorry, this is an interview with you, but we're having a chat as friends and ultra runners. If you had to say to me, which is my favorite race, I would go to Two Oceans. I just loved it. I loved the whole weekend. It's just a fabulous race. But which is the one? You know, the one is rock and roll. That's Two Oceans. It's rock and roll. It's fun. the next day you go down to the wine farm or to the beach. But Comrades is classical music. You know, it's just it's another level. So yeah, I'm casting my mind back. This year's Comrades, Carlo, you had a brutal finish. If I recall, I was commentating, and you caught one of the runners right at the end. I mean, you gave everything. I remember you gave everything in that last straight, about 200 meters, and it was a long straight. It was a very long straight, and I remember you were out on your feet at the end. Tell us what happened there.
So yeah, Comrades for me last year was just a battle. I pretty much started hurting from 30 kilometers. And at that point, I knew it was going to be a really tough and really long day. And then for the last 10 kilometers, Buli and I were basically playing a game of chess. She would overtake me, then I would overtake her. And this just kept on going for the whole. She would basically overtake me on an uphill, and then I would overtake her on a downhill. So, like any tiny little variation in the gradient in that last 10 kilometers. And then coming into Peter Maritzburg, like every corner, one of us would take the corner differently. But one thing is like she kept on turning around to look at me. And I remember like from reading Paula Radcliffe's book back in the day, she said, like, you never look back because it's a sign of weakness. And in my head, I was like, okay, maybe she's struggling a little bit more and starting to show that. So I just need to hang on to this as much as I can. And I need to try, as you say, in that last 200 meters, which felt like about 20 miles, that last turn, I just need to go for it. And I think an ultra marathon would come down to a sprint finish, but here we go, it did.
We got a lot in common there, Carla, I can tell you. I think probably long before you were born. But anyway, 1980, I entered Kingsmead about 5 strides behind Malcolm Ball. And we were racing for second and third place. Alan Robb had already won. And we went into Kingsmead essentially shoulder to shoulder. And you never ever want that at the end of an ultra marathon to have to sprint. As we all know, what you really want on that last lap is to do a bit of waving, a bit of air punching, blowing kisses and savoring the moment. You deserve it. Everybody deserves it, whether they're a 12-hour runner or a 5.5-hour runner. They deserve the last lap to bask in the glory, their own glory. And you and I have both had a situation where there's been no time to do that. You've had to push. But again, I'm going to emphasize, I remember just looking at you, the finish, of last year's uprun was horrendous in terms of length. And you were just completely out when you crossed the line. Ahead of Bukle, you were ahead, but I could see how tough you were because you had nothing left. I don't think you would wake up, correct me if I'm wrong, wake up the next day and said, what if? Or I could have gone harder. You could not have gone harder. You had nothing. There was nothing left in you, I think.
No, nothing. And I think what was great was she really pushed me to race hard, because actually from where I finished in 4th to 8th place, there was only a minute between all of us. So she definitely got the absolute best out of me on that day, which was like very cool.
And compliment yourself. You got the best out of her. I mean, that's the beauty of our sport, I think. We push each other and then we hug each other afterwards and shake hands and go and talk about it. So, okay, that was just that memory is uppermost in my mind, but maybe perhaps tell us about your third place in those 2 races. I mean, were those stronger runs? I mean, third place is, you're on the podium.
Yeah, the third place at Oceans was a massive surprise, because I'd taken it a little bit easier in the first half, and it's like what you say, you play the long game in these ultras, and I'd listened to your advice before of, you go out a little bit slower at the beginning and you then start to fight and go hard in the latter part of the race. And I definitely did that in Oceans, and it definitely paid off, because I think in the last, well, on the hills in Oceans, I went from like 12th place to third. And that was almost like an absolute perfect race. I couldn't have raced any better and loved it. And then Comrades that year. What were you going to say? Sorry.
No. Carla, I was just going to say what I always tell people to do, at the risk of exaggeration, is to start like a coward and finish like a hero. And then the thing with Oceans is the course is actually designed for you to start like it's designed to tempt you into starting like a hero and then unfortunately finishing like a coward, because the two halves are, they are Jekyll and Hyde. So the first half of Two Oceans, as we all know, is seductive, fast, lots of oxygen in the air. It's dark, it's cool. You've got the sea breaking next to you, and there are some little bumps, but there's nothing until you get to 21Ks. Fishhook Circle, I always say, is the bit that says hello. It just tugs at your hamstrings a bit and says hello. But it's so easy to be seduced into going too fast. And then the second half, of course, just smashes you. At 28Ks, you go up the first monster, and that's Little Chapman's, followed by a bone-crunching descent, and then up Main Chapman's, and then, of course, Concentra Neck. But you know about it. So to me, there's never been a race that is more designed to tempt you to do the wrong thing, and that you have to show army discipline and the mental fortitude to say, I am going to keep control. I am going to keep control. We're going to win this battle towards the end. So you definitely did that. But then tell us about your third place in Comrades.
Yeah, and then Comrades, I wanted to just go out and see what I could do. And, before I went in the race, I was like, I want to actually race it. Where Oceans, I was a bit more focused on like my making sure I didn't do anything silly. Comrades, I wanted to almost like throw my hat in the ring and see pretty much what Gerda was going to do. So I started with her. I felt really comfortable, but then once she started to put the hammer down and work, that would be a silly gameplay, and stuck back to the pace that I felt a little bit more comfortable. And again, it was a great race. It was really hard. It was really tough. Adele ended up catching me in Pinetown and flew past me like I was standing still, and she was having the day of her life, which she had an amazing race, and it was really cool to see. And I remember I saw my uncle on the side of the road and just remember shouting at him like, "Where is fourth place?" And he's like, "Okay, I'll try and find out for you." And at that point, with 15 kilometers to go, it was a case of you're just running scared, and you're like, I just need to hold on to everything that I've got. But again, I really enjoyed how I raced. It was hard. I didn't have anything left at the end. I did get to enjoy the final lap a little bit more than I did last year.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was tough. Like that down is definitely my favorite, because you just have to suck up the pain. And I think I can kind of deal with that a little bit more than the grind of going uphill.
Okay, that's the only time that you and I are going to disagree. I'm a huge fan of the uprun, the down run. Well, as you summed it up, it's so painful. And I always felt you were talking about genetic limits and what you can get out of yourself. I always felt on the uprun that I had done the best that I could. If I look back on my final fastest time up, it's more or less my genetic limit. The down run, I was always puzzled afterwards, thinking I could have gone better or something. What went wrong? But I think my legs just got smashed to pieces, so that I couldn't, as everyone's are, I just couldn't get going once, at the end. Maybe we'll come back to those two fantastic races. And by the way, because of course I do the commentary some years in both races, you've reminded me that your Two Oceans third place was a complete surprise for all of us. a delightful surprise. But I remember commentating, and you just popped up there suddenly. You were just on the field, suddenly you were third. And we have spotters and people like that out on the course who tell us what's going on. But you must have, you said you went from 12th to third. You definitely did. You went from nowhere to third, because we had no time to track you catching. And when we commentate, we have a bank of cameras. We have one which is surrounded with an orange sort of neon sign to remind us that that is what South Africa and the world is watching. So don't talk about something else that you can see on one of the other cameras, but we can. And you weren't there, and suddenly you were. So that was an amazing run. But let's maybe, to use that cliched expression, park those two for a bit and just quickly go to another of your, I personally think possibly your greatest achievement, world 50K champion, world champion at 50 kilometers. Tell us about that, Carla.
Yeah, that was probably the most perfect race I'd ever had. It was out in India in 2023, and 2023 was a great year for me. I felt like it was like my breakthrough year, but I did everything that I could in preparation for that race. Like, I looked at what the temperature, the weather, the course, what everything was going to be like. I ended up going out to Dubai the 2 weeks before the race, and stayed with Herda and did some training out there to prepare myself for the heat and humidity, to almost just set myself up as best as I could before I went into the race. I'd looked at how the other races had been run, and then on the start line, well, actually, the day before, I'd spoken to the other girls in my team and some of the other girls that I thought would be contenders in the race. Again, my name was like nowhere near the top, because my marathon time was probably the 30 or 40th. It was one of the slowest times on paper there. And generally, when you're looking at the 50K times, it favors fast marathon runners that have got that little bit of endurance to hold on to the end. So I think everyone kind of just didn't even put me in the mix. So firstly, it's great to go into a race where the eyes are not on you. And then everyone had said that they were going to go off at 3:45 a K, which is the pace that I had trained at. I'm like, okay, cool, that's to me. But when the race started, I think everyone didn't realize how bad the humidity was, that they actually just started running at 4 minutes a K. So in my head, I was like, well, this is even better for me. I'm just going to sit in behind these girls. No one's going for it. Where the men's race was very different. The leader of the men's race just went off like a bullet and destroyed the field, where we had a nice pack of about 7 of us, and I was lazy and just sat at the back and watched the race unfold at about 7K, like gradually, like slowly as we went through each lap. So it was 10 by 5K loops, which one I really liked because it made nutrition and fueling very easy. We would see our support crew every 5K. And each lap we would kind of lose another person from the group. With 7, at the 7th lap, I decided to try and pull away from the group a little bit to see if anyone would come with me, and no one did. So I thought, oh, well, this is silly. I'm just going to make my life easier. I dropped back with the group and then decided to actually make my break on the last lap. And no one came with me. And I was running being like, oh my God, like, why has no one come with me? It was like a massive shock. And it was one of those where in my head, I was like, oh my God, I think I might win. And then you've also at the same time got to bat that out of your head and be like, no, don't think about that yet. Like, focus. But I almost feel like it's a table tennis. I'm like, no, that thought has to leave my head. Focus until the finish line. And coming down that finish line and winning that race was, insane. And it was, absolutely, amazing. And just, it was just the dream race. It was perfect.
We all deserve one of those. And we all have one or two. But of course, we also all have some of the nightmare ones as well. For those who don't know, the world ultra champs alternate each year, 50 Ks, then 100 Ks, then 50 Ks, then 100 Ks. So next year is 50 again. Carla, you're going to go back and defend it?
Yeah.
You are? Okay, great.
Well, I heard a rumor that it might be in India again. So it depends. I don't know if I want to go back to India. We'll see.
Yeah, hot. Okay, Carla, by the way, anyone who's listening, please, if you've got questions, pop them in. We've got a question, I never know what you call it, a little question icon chat thing that you can chuck some questions in for Carla, but even me if you want to. Carla, and by the way, for those who don't know, Comrades substitutions are open today. So those of you who are looking to substitute, now is when you start begging. You can get into the race as a substitute. Carla, perhaps maybe give us a little, without, you might not necessarily want to give it all away, but a little indication of how you train. Like what in this period now, and we're very close to two oceans, and we have really started the Comrades build up. I mean, there's another disadvantage for you, Carla, living in Cape Town. You don't have this very magical flower called the cosmos. We have fields and fields of cosmos flowers. And when the cosmos are blooming, which they are now, it's a sign to all of us up here in the high country that we have to start training. If we haven't started training, it's too late. It's similar to when I was at university, at Wits University. We always knew that when the jacarandas were blooming, you had to start swatting if you hadn't swatted. But just give us an idea of what a typical Monday to Sunday would be like for you at this stage. Without, I mean, if you don't want to, give it all away, but just let us know. Do you have a rest day? Do you have a long run, speed work, hill work? How do you sort of structure your week?
Yeah. All my training is on Strava and it's public. So if anyone wants to see exactly what I do, you can hop over there and have a look.
Yeah.
Not a secret. But essentially what I do is on a Wednesday, we do an interval session, which will either be HIIT or a fartlek type session. We're kind of alternating each week at the moment. And Saturdays, we do our long run, which is generally like a structured session. So this Saturday, for example, we've got a progression run where we'll gradually get quicker as we go through it, or it might be something like 4x5K, like quite marathon specific long runs. Or maybe the weekend just gone, I actually did West Coast Marathon on Saturday as a long, hard tempo run. And then all the rest of my runs, bar those two, are easy in the week. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of double days. So I'll do a 60-minute easy in the morning and a 30-minute easy in the afternoon. And then I'll go to the gym and do strength and conditioning 3 times a week and a mobility session once a week. So 2 quality sessions and the rest just very, very easy.
Rest days?
No rest days, just easy days.
Yeah. You sound like you took it. I mean, we're identical, apart from the military background to our lives. But the only thing I don't do is Strava. Carl, I thought I'd just show you. That's my Strava. All written down there.
Wow, that's so cool.
From years past, with the races in red. It's very similar, and your approach is very similar, except I mean, only one thing, I can't understand how you could give up a park run on a Saturday when you could do your long run on a Sunday. But anyway, that's the only one.
When I asked my coach, I was like, can we please do our long runs on a Saturday? And he's like, why? And I was like, so we can have a social life. So that's why our long runs are on a Saturday.
Oh, so you can have a social life. Yeah, you don't have, it's no social life, but it's only for 2 or 3 months. Carla, I also, by the way, never had a rest day unless I absolutely felt that I was drained and broken, and I had what we used to call the plods. If you've got the plods, where your legs are dead and they remain dead throughout the whole run. There's a sign, and you've got a bit of a scratchy throat, that kind of thing. Then maybe, but in the whole build up from March until June, I've not 2 days, that I might just have a rest. But even then, I'd probably get on a bicycle and cycle. So yeah, thanks, Carl. And by the way, guys, I get invited to do lots and lots of talks to running clubs over the years, and I've done every club you can mention lots of times. But I do know that, because I've spoken with her, that Carla's a great guest speaker for your club, and especially if you are one of the Cape-based clubs, you need. I have spoken with Carla a while ago to the Nedbank Running Club at the George Lee Park. So I know Carla's a great speaker. So if any of you are looking for somebody, you've had Fordyce, all his jokes. It's so sickening. Get Carla. She's great, and yeah, and she's got different jokes and different advice.
I've stolen some of yours.
So that's the reason. You might have stolen some. It's hard to steal somebody else's jokes if you can't get the punchline right. Okay, so Carla, the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. Can Gerda be beaten?
I think anyone can be beaten. It's just like, you have to, like, no one's invincible. I do think Gerda is the best road ultra runner that we've got at the moment. She's the best on paper. She's the fastest. She's really strong. She's won for how many years? But anything can happen, and I personally don't want to think in my racing, oh, I'm only going to do well in a race if she doesn't do well. I think I want everyone to do well, but I've got to train as hard as I can to have the best race that I can have. And if that makes you finish in first place or fifth place, that's what it is. But yeah, it's great. I think, especially with Comrades, I think it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of years. And I'm really hoping that they do it again this year, where they have the introduction of elite water tables, because I think that's probably one thing before that maybe put international athletes at a disadvantage, or made them not want to come and race here, because having your support crew and your seconds is what makes or breaks your race. And I think that certainly could maybe like up the game a little bit in terms of some other people coming in there and challenging those top spots, which is going to be interesting to see. Don't know what you think about
that. Yep, I'm envious. I mean, I'm filled with envy for everything. This is not a chat about me, but let's just mention one topic: prize money. And I'm not bitter, but that's one. To have the elite tables is also fantastic, but then that also is because the kind of intimate, close seconding that we could have in my time has gone now. My first Comrades Marathon, 1977, my family drove alongside me in a car and handed me drinks out of the window. They handed me my drinks straight out the window. So that is obviously gone. And then after that, we still had seconds who could follow you along, and give you your drinks and supply you the information. I found it fascinating when you said to your relative, was it your uncle, or how far behind me is fourth?
Yeah.
We didn't have those problems in my day, because our seconds would be taking splits. They would tell me, you've got a 5-minute gap to fourth. They would tell us that information. And I think the modern top runners have to run under a lot more, they're under a lot more strain, not knowing what's going on. And so I think it's great that there are tables, elite tables, and I hope they carry on doing that. I mean, it was a major battle for a long time to finally get the organizers of Comrades to agree that they have to make some exceptions for the elite runners. At one stage, it was, that's it. Comrades is a race for everyone. Everyone is equal. You don't get to start in the front unless you get there at 3 o'clock in the morning. Then you can start in the front. And gradually they started to realize, one of our arguments was, well, if it's a race for everybody and everybody's the same, why do you have gold medals and silver medals and different categories? So I'm thrilled that you've got those. And then going back to, sorry, I know you're trying to get the elephant out of the room, but I'm going to pull it back in. Going back to the elephant in the room is that I find it absolutely fascinating that it is absolutely clear when you two are together that you and Gerda are great friends. You are great mates. I mean, I've seen you together. She gives you a smile and a pat on the back when you're running together. But I saw you together. We were at the launch of her documentary, which, by the way, everybody, is absolutely essential viewing. It's a wonderful documentary. But there you're great mates, and the way you spoke about her in the documentary is not of somebody who is jealous or who doesn't really like your opponent. You clearly are very fond of Gerda, and she of you.
Yeah, no, I really like. It's been since I've started running and doing the ultras, she's always been like a great friend and someone that's like shared advice and tips, and we've run together and been on camps together. And I think I've kind of always had that with like other girls and stuff that I've raced with. And I really like that you can be friends. Obviously, the minute you line up on that race line, you both want to run as hard as you can, and you're out there to battle it out. But it's nice to have that friendship within the sport when it is an individual sport. And yeah, I really like her as a person. She's easy to get on with, and yeah, her documentary is awesome, and I think it's gonna get everyone excited about Comrades and Oceans. I think it comes out this week.
Yes, yeah. I hope it will get people fired up. What I particularly enjoyed about it, Carla, was that she also part of it dwells on her failures. A lot of these things are all about how great somebody is, and they did this, they did that, they did this, amazing, amazing, amazing. She dealt with 2 disappointments, and you could feel the disappointment when she was being interviewed. The one was the Paris Olympics, and the other was the race in Spain. I forgot what was it again? The race, Valencia. Yeah,
Valencia
both
Marathon.
Of which she, in her own, Valencia Marathon, in her opinion, she underperformed. But I mean, I, as an old experienced hand, would tell you that she didn't underperform. Her body was just exhausted. You can't smash the record in 2 Oceans and then smash the record in Comrades and seriously think that you can bounce back and compete at the very highest level. You can't get higher level than the Olympics. So Carla, for you, any chance of the Olympics, or is it just a bridge too far or too fast, to make the British team to go to the Olympics?
Yeah, I think, realistically, I know what I can and can't do. And if I would want to go to the Olympics, I would need to be running a 2:22, 2:23 marathon. The British team is insane. And my marathon PB is 2:38. It's worlds apart. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not that fast, but I can run for a long time. So I'll stick with
that. there are a lot of runners all around the world who would love to be a slow 2:38. They would love to have that as an embarrassing 2:38. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Your marathon time needs to get a little quicker. So in fact, you have probably, and that brings me back to a point I raised right in the start of our chat, underlined the fact that your greatest strength is not your speed, it's your endurance. You said how as the thing gets longer, you get better. And, the jog was an example of that. Your 50K world champs is an example of that. You're coming through in Comrades to high gold medal positions is also an example of the fact that you've got this endurance yeah, there's endurance DNA in you that clearly is your strength. But I mean, if I was advising you as your coach, as a Fordyce Fusion coach, I would say still try and get your marathon time down, because as you get that marathon time down, so your confidence in being able to take on the other ladies grows. And have we got any questions, by the way? Are people firing? Okay, we have. I can't believe it. I was listening, I'd be absolutely dying to ask you questions. But future plans? What are the future plans? Two Oceans Comrades.
Yeah, Two Oceans Comrades for the first half of this year. I haven't decided on the second half, mainly because I just want to focus. Yeah, either World 50K or another fast marathon. Again, I am working on that time down. So looking at some of the good quality, quick international marathons towards the end of the year. So we'll kind of see where that goes and which ones I can get into.
And then Carla, the thing that always drives us all mad, have you been relatively injury free in your running career, or have you had some hectic injuries that a lot of us do have?
I've been very lucky. My last injury was I actually got a stress fracture because I fell running from the road onto the trail. Yeah. And I sprained my ankle very badly. So that was 2018, 2017. So quite a long time now. No, 2019. Sorry, my brain's going all over the place. That was the last time I was seriously injured. I had to be in a boot for 6 weeks. But yeah, since then, I actually haven't had any injuries. And I think, a lot of that is down to doing strength and conditioning every week and fueling properly. So
absolutely, I think Carla, there's a book waiting to. There's a book there waiting for you to write. I know you would probably argue and say, "Well, my career is only halfway through," but already you've got to wait, because we've got a question which you have just answered, which is, "Hi Carla, how do you stay injury free? Strength and conditioning." And then also you're not, you have some quality sessions, but you're not insane with the amount of quality you get. And even the injury that you had, the stress fracture, is what I call an act of God. That was an accident. You fell, you twisted your ankle.
Yeah.
Most of the injuries that Comrades and Two Oceans, and I hope you'll agree with me, runners are going to get now or have now, they give themselves. They give themselves those injuries because they have that disease which is called desperately keen titus, and where they do too much, too fast, too often, too soon. All the twos are in there because, as we know, all runners are not frightened of hard work. We are not frightened to go and train very, very hard. And so what happens is our bodies quite often just cannot keep up with it, and they protest by getting in. You clearly have got a very good training schedule, and then your strength and conditioning. And I have to say, in my own case, I also eventually turned to the gym and started doing some strength and conditioning work, as you can see. No, my very puny body. So yeah, I think, Carla, is there anything that I haven't discussed that you would like to chat? Otherwise, perhaps we can slowly wind up. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to chat to you. But if there's anything I've left out, is there anything you'd like to tell runners out there? Any advice you have for my son Nicholas, who is running his first Comrades and his first Two Oceans? He got a marathon PB on the weekend.
Oh, nice. Which one did he do?
He did the same one you did. You probably beat him though in your tempo run.
What time did he do?
He says 3:17, but he's a man in his 30s, very chuffed. It's a second marathon, 3:31 to 3:17. So you need to be frightened.
Yeah.
He's looking for you in 2026.
Right. No, I think like the biggest
Yeah,
piece of
just
advice for runners now is that just don't look at what everyone else is doing. I've had so many questions about this where everyone's like,
yeah.
my friend Dave ran 70 kilometers on Sunday. Should I go and do that too? And you're
Yeah.
like, no, stick to your plan. I always think less is more. You're way better, slightly undercooking it,
Oh,
but going into a race fresh and without injuries, then tipping yourself over the edge by running 10 kilometers more than you're capable of at the moment, and then being tired, being injured, and then hating the day. Because, the race itself is the celebration of the training. So you want to get in there being able to enjoy it as much as you can.
yeah, I love that. The race is a celebration of the training, and I am going to steal that from you, Carla. Next time I write, I'm going to steal that from you, but I will put it in inverted commas and say this is a Molinaro quote. Okay, yeah, that's a beautiful description. Um, Carla, yes, just thank you so much for giving your time. You've been amazing. I think people who have been listening will be gobsmacked at your achievements, but also at your courage and your strength. And they have no idea. Only those of us who saw Carla Molinaro coming down the last 200 meters of the 2024 uprun will understand how hard this person is. And perhaps it's good. Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful. It's been a joy and a privilege. And all I can say, Carla, is our old battle cry, Io Go Carly. Thank you so much.
Love it. Thank you, Bruce. It's been awesome. Thanks for having me on.